So the title of Koji is Navigating Difficult Times with Solidarity. Let's face it, 2020 is not an easy year. Global warming, the pandemic, and a history of racial injustice. As leaders and managers, how should we approach to these times and have an open, honest, and courageous conversation in our organizations? So not just changing the logo on the LinkedIn page, put a pretty little rainbow, or painting it black. What are we actually doing with our teams? Are you recruiting more diverse people? Did you interview any transsexuals, transgenders this year? Did you make an effort to equalize the male-female ratio in your teams? Design leaders, huh? Changing the logo is easier. I want to see some real diversity there. Let's go, Koji. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So the theme of my conversation is navigating difficult times, as Bernardo was saying. First of all, thanks, Bernardo, for your initiative. I think this is very interesting to see other people, other leaders around, not just US, but Brazil and Peru. I'm very excited to be here. I think this presentation will be successful if we make it more like a conversation, to be honest. Like, I hope this is more like an open question than necessarily like giving solutions. So I just want to talk a little bit about me very quickly, because I think it's important to understand a little bit about the type of things that I value. I grew up in Brazil, in Belo Horizonte, and I grew up in this neighborhood, which was not the richest neighborhood in Belo Horizonte, I would say. Very violent, not very welcoming, and definitely we didn't have a lot of resources like supermarkets, or even like the street was actually not pavement when I grew up, when I was younger. And I studied in this school called Professor Mário Werneck, which I'm very grateful to be there, because it was actually in a different neighborhood, because the school in my neighborhood was too violent. So my mom used to drive me to this different school in a different neighborhood. And I also study on University of Minas Gerais, o FMG, which some of you might be familiar. But I think what interesting thing about this university is that the Google's, at that time, the founders, Larry and Sergey, they went to this school to acquire a startup that was accelerated by the university. So Aquan, which you can see in the photo here, I think this is one of the rare photos where you can see both of them in Belo Horizonte when they were acquiring this company. So at that time, I wasn't there yet. It was just a group of people who I was fortunate enough to work with. And before that, I would say, actually after that, my first experience with design was with graphic design, as many of you. I had a band, so I started with like demo tapes, posters for shows. And this was around 96 to 97. And of course, like my favorite tool at that time was CorelDRAW.
Beautiful.
In 2000s, that was my first experience with a real product. There is this guy who's the CEO of Run It, Franklin Valadares. He started this company in 2000. It was Petitudo, the first one on the left. Quickly about it, because it's very interesting. We had a server in our office. This was desktop computing, right? No internet in phones, nothing like that. It was just like dial-up internet. And so we had a server with a website. People will access our website, petitudo.com. They would order a pizza. We would send a facsimile connected. We had a facsimile connected to our PC. The facsimile would send a fax to the pizza place. They would get the facsimile with the order. They would deliver the pizza and get the money in cash. So that was like a very, very primitive version of Uber Eats at that time. Of course, it didn't work that much, but it was so interesting to work on this in 2000. And after that, I worked with Franklin in other products like Lembreto, which was an SMS channels, including horoscope and news in your phone. That was before smartphones. And when the iPhone was launched, we worked in this web radio platform called Play Me. So that was my start in technology. And then in 2009, I joined Google and I work on Orkut, which I bet many of you are familiar. In the US, not many people are. And then I worked in a lot of different things. I like to say this because, you know, I was at Google for almost 10 years, but Google has this amazing ecosystem of products. So you can actually work with different people, totally different environments, and still be in the same company. And last year, actually, I said 2020 here, but it's 2019, I joined Lyft. And now I manage the Lyft business team. In 2014, I moved from Belo Horizonte to San Francisco, and that's where I am right now. And what I want to talk about today is, first is navigating difficult times. We all know that about the saying, user-centered design, but what I want to chat first is people-centered teams. I spent most of my career working as a designer, and in the past 3 years, I've been more focused on management. And I did learn a lot of things about this because I was like, okay, I really like design, but I feel that I have a lot to learn about people. And I'm gonna share a little bit of what I learned today, hopefully. So as a manager, my motto was like, I want to be able to bring my whole self to work. And I want to care and understand the people and the human beings that I have around me 8 hours a day. So how might we build a collaborative team where collaborators are not afraid to ask questions or raise concerns? And I think this is very important because if you really want to build a team that can think by itself, you need to make sure that people first, they are not afraid to ask difficult questions. They are not afraid to raise concerns because you commit errors. Everyone can be wrong, like including the CEO, including the VPs and directors. And if you're building a company based on people who just obey whatever the higher management says, then you probably will build products that will fail. And I think I learned that the hard way at Google because I went to teams where people were just like so afraid to talk. And in the end of the day, those teams didn't thrive. And then, you know, they had like very good people in those teams. Sometimes even like the best people were in that teams. And then I joined different teams where actually they actually may not have the best designers, but people are open to ask questions and challenge the management. And that was when actually we're able to create products that I think had very, very high impact. One example is Files by Google, a file manager that we launched, and I think like 3 or 4 years ago. And right now they just crossed 500 million active users, which is huge per month. And the interesting thing about this team is that we are the NBU team, the next billion users. We were very flat in terms of how we thought about hierarchy and how we thought about decision making. Now, how do we do that with solidarity? We all know that in May 25, a 46-year-old unarmed Black man was killed by the police in Minneapolis here in the US. He had a knee from a white cop on his neck for 9 minutes. I don't know how many was able to watch the video. It's very hard to see. And he repeated, "I can't breathe," for this whole 9 minutes. We were all in lockdown here in the US, and the protests exploded. And many others like him also, you know, kind of face the same reality. In Brazil, we know that the cops and the police kills 4-5 times more than US. And the police from Rio is one of the police that kills the most in the world. And unfortunately, it is the most dangerous country for trans people of color. So I think these are all like very, very hard things to digest, especially because we're all working from home and, you know, without the physical and the eye-to-eye contact. And I think the first thing that I saw in LinkedIn and being shared across the professional circle, I would say, was this post from Shaneka on Medium. She was talking about exactly this, like, how do we come back to work right now, especially if you're a person of color, if you're Black in the US. And I also watched this video. I don't know how many of you follow Trevor Noah from The Daily Show. He's a comedian from South Africa, and he always have very interesting analysis about politics and technology, everything pretty much. And while for many of us, it's common to try to make sense of a situation like this, where like protest was exploding, a lot of us try to like understand what is effective and what is acceptable in a protest. And it's interesting because it's bigger than that, right? It's like the social contract that we're supposed to have with the society was broken. So how actually you ask for people to be fair or to not break things if they are being broken by the society over and over? So I think he brought this very interesting analysis on the looting and the protest that was happening in the US at that time. One interesting resource that I also came across was this guide to Atlas sheep. And out of that resource, there is a Google program manager who shared this deck called Jenai Butler, called Standing United to Fight Against Inequality, which is a very interesting one. I can definitely share the link too. And one of the things that those resources helped me a lot was like, okay, now how do I come back to work? Especially as a Brazilian. Yes, I'm a minority here, but I am definitely not the same. I don't have the same experience as a Black person who lives in the US. I don't have the same experience as a Muslim person who lives in the US. So how do we keep myself open to listen to people, and how do I interact and how I help? Because it's so easy to try to help and do the wrong thing. Like, you know, for instance, there's a couple of examples here, which I don't want to go all over them. But I think it's very common for us to just come and say like, how can I help? You know, what can I do? And sometimes what people need is just like, have the feeling that you are on their side and say like, I stand with you, I'm thinking of you, do your research, you know, bring these questions to your team and not just try to like ignore them. I think coming from Brazil, I felt that so many times I was at work and, you know, people were just like ignoring the things that were happening in the world. So how do you actually like create connection, and how do you actually build trust if you really don't care about what's happening with a specific group of people who work with you 8 hours per day, right? Like, you can't ignore this. You have to bring, and you have to be courageous enough to open this conversation. How much time I have, Bernard?
You got 7 minutes.
Okay, cool, thank you. Yeah, I want to go quickly about this ones. One of the things that I did even before the protest was open this open mentorship to anyone, pretty much. Like people could just sign up in a form, in a Google form for 30 minutes mentorship. I definitely would also say to all of you, if you can donate some time to help people who are starting their careers, to also try to do something similar. Right now there's websites, there's ADP list and UX coffee hours where they accept you to be listed there, and you can help other people. And then the other thing that I did was like, okay, now that I'm having this awesome conversations with mentees and people in the industry, how can I actually open this conversation to even more people and maybe like even raise some money, right? So I started this Instagram called Cells and Pixels. Yesterday I had Luke Robelski, which many of you should know. He wrote 3 books about UX. He sold 2 companies, one to Twitter, one to Google. He's a very well-known person. He coined the term mobile first. And he was my mentor when I was at Google. So, like mentorship is this awesome thing where you not only create this moment where you're helping someone, but you're actually making friends. And I think I consider Luke a friend forever. Like I can reach to him, he can reach to me. We have conversations, and I invited him to this talk, which I thought was very interesting. A lot of people sent questions. And during those talks, I'm also raising money. So every Tuesdays at 5 p.m. PST, if you guys want to follow up, that'll be great to have all of you there. So in general, I would like to say that leading design is more than pixels. It's the value you bring to people's life, and not only the users, right? Like the people inside the organization. How do you think about the people who you work with if you share this 8 hours per day? So thank you. I want to like have more discussions if we have time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Koji. We got about 4 minutes for questions. Who's got questions for Koji?
Hi, everyone.
Oh, go ahead, Camila.
A private message to Bernardo, because I really wanted to, first of all, congratulate Koji for bringing, for me, the one topic we should be talking about right now. And not just looking from a user point of view, but also from our team's point of view. Are we hiring diverse people? Are we, because that's the first question I asked when we got here. I was trying to get an overview of who was here, and I didn't see any Black people, any Black design leaders. And I think this is a problem. So congratulations for bringing this up. I haven't been to any other meeting, so this is my first one. I'm really happy that you brought this up. And at the same time, point to the irony that our 2 speakers today were white men. We should start looking at things like this from our what we do every day. I think it's really nice, as Bernardo said, it's not just about, and the one thing that COVID is teaching us is that we should look beyond do no harm. We should understand that our work has impact. And as design leaders, we are more responsible for this. But at the same time, sometimes we look at it from a client's perspective, and we're not looking at what we're doing at home, in our teams, and in this wonderful group with wonderful people. So how can we do better? Because we need to do better. What we're doing is not enough by any measures. And what we're seeing in the world now is showing us that. So we need to do a lot better. And I think this group has a huge responsibility. And I think we need to do better here first if we want to do better with our clients and for our users and our teams. A tiny bit about me and why I'm being, the one person to point the purple elephant in the living room. I, besides being head of design at a consultancy here in Brazil, I am also co-founder at More Girls without an I, GRLS. And our mission is to bring more visibility, value, and raise the numbers of women in creative areas, and that includes design. And we've been turning our attention solely to anti-racist measures, because if we make it better for Black women, we're making it better for white women as well. So we've been, if all of you would like to follow us on Instagram, there's all sorts of things. We have a podcast now as well. And so I think that's the point. We always say as designers, look, to the extremes, never design for the middleman, design for the extremes. And I think this is a very good example of how to approach a more diverse way of looking at things here as well. We need to look at the extremes, because then the middle will be perfect. But thank you, Koji, for bringing this discussion for at least my first time here with this group. I think it's the one discussion we should be having.
Thank you so much, Camila. Much appreciate your comments. For sure, we're going to have some great female Black speakers. Just one correction, though, Koji is not white, he's Asian.
True,
Keep that in mind, okay?
True.
So we do have some diversity, but perhaps not enough. Any more questions for Koji?
I do have. Are you guys listening to me?
Yep.
Okay. Koji, nice to meet you. Bernardo, pleasure to see you again. So last year, I was trying to hire a lead design for my team. I used to work at Rumo, which is a railroad company. And I had some difficulty. I looked at these people, I looked at the recruitment process, and I said, well, I think this is a time we actually can make a difference in our company. And I would like to hire someone who is Black, because we need to do our part to do so. And we couldn't find one back here in Curitiba. I had to hire agencies to do so, and we couldn't find one. So the question we started asking ourselves is, okay, so how can we, one, are we looking in the right places? And second, if there is none at the moment, what can we do to form people to do so? And I'm going to be very honest with you. I had some ideas. I used to be a IXDA leader. We promoted some free courses. We promoted some free formation groups to do so. But in my opinion, that isn't enough. And I would like your vision on that, to know what we can do more to, help in these communities. We even had a partnership with a community called Ladies at UX and Black Ladies here. But we're afraid that can take some time yet. So I would like your vision on that.
Yeah, I feel like here people have the same questions. Like, how do you think? One is, I think there's maybe three layers of the problem. One is like, how do you actually get people to feel interested and feel empowered to study about UX or about technology, right? Like, that's the education level. Then there is like the inclusion level, the diversity level, which is how do you hire diverse people? And I think one that maybe sometimes overseen is the inclusivity level, which is like, okay, now that you have some diversity, how do you make people feel safe? And I think that's sometimes overseen because a lot of companies, they already have diversity, even if it's a small, like there is at least one or two people that maybe are not in the spectrum of like white, man, heterosexual, but then this one or two people feel very excluded from the rest, right? Like, I think that's the other side of the problem. Like, how do we, once you have that, how do you actually make people feel comfortable and included in this circle of discussion? Here in the US, for instance, as not being a English native speaker, I feel that a lot of people who come to US feel very hard that the pressure of like presenting or talking in a meeting. Like a lot of people get very quiet because we're not like in our most natural language, right? And sometimes the companies don't understand that. So what they think is like, oh, this person is just shy, and let's continue the conversation. So not, for instance, just giving the pause to help people think about the problem and come up with an answer. It's a way to kind of like empower this person who maybe not be native in your language.
Yep. Excellent, excellent, guys. We're coming to an end, guys, girls. This is
Can I say one thing?
Yep.
Yeah, I listened to what the Bruno's just said, and I have kind of the same issue here, but I try to not only bring to my team leaders inside minority groups, but also try to attract these young talents to junior positions, not just as leaders. So I think we should try this kind of approach. Empower women and Black designers and other minorities. It's hard to find senior designers and leaders just formed. So we need to form these kind of professions too. So I don't know, just my 2 cents.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, we all know there is a systematic problem in society, not just in our companies. So we know less Black people graduate from university and good universities. But on the other hand, for example, in Brazil, we have more women than men graduating from universities. So why are they not taking up the leadership roles? So therefore, some issues are to do with society and with the whole educational system, but other issues are to do with the actual recruitment process being run by people who are suffering from biases. So if the leaders who are conducting the recruitment process and they're doing that in a way where they are allowing for their personal bias, even if inherently, even if without them knowing, are influencing their decisions, right? So there are a set of tools. For example, at the Bridge, we use blind interviews. So we might ask the client to interview the person without looking at a photo, right? Without knowing what color that person is, right? So that's one way of dealing with that sort of situation. Obviously, there's a whole reverse education system where we need to educate the leaders because they come to us and say, I need more women in my team. But when we do send women to them, then they actually don't have the disposition to listen, and they will do mansplaining. They will not give them the right space. They will not invite them to the table. So there's no point just trying to put more women in the team if you're not going to give them the opportunity to grow, right? So there's a lot of touch points and a lot of approaches, but there's a lot of tools and initiatives that can be used. Yes, we need to educate the talent so that they are capable of taking on those responsibility role, but we need to be able to also give up power and empower them and give them the opportunity, take risks, you know, to give someone a chance and say, I'm going to give this person a chance. They're not ready yet. I'm going to train them. I'm going to mentor them, like Koji says, right? But you need to take that upon yourselves as leaders, and you need to challenge other leaders to take upon themselves to challenge their biases, educate people, give them opportunity, and to have clear metrics as well and evaluate how diverse is our team, look at the data, you know, how many, you know, in terms of skills, and what is the data and how can we change that? What are the clear objectives that we have? We already know there's deep research that says that more women at the top result in companies that actually make more money. So there's no more excuse. There's so much data and so much research that kind of shows more diverse UX teams are able to empathize with more people. So if you have 500 million users, you better be looking after the Black users too. Otherwise, Koji, your file system is not going to work, right? So everything we need to consider. We need to consider society as a whole, and it's in its multicolored diversity. So we, as a small company at the Bridge, we're always striving also to try and change that. Just this week, I shared a list of Black candidate CVs to Marcos. He's my witnesses, and we are interviewing them because we specifically want a Black person for this role as a project manager. If you know a Black project manager, transsexual, etc., send it to us. We're hiring, and make sure you guys also, when you post your jobs, that you make it clear that you're looking for diverse female or whatever kind of variety, flavor, and color that you need in your team, right? So that's it. We're a little bit over time. I want to say thank you so much, first of all, to Koji and Nicholas for your presentations. Thank you for making the time. Thank you to all our 80 and so participants. A lot of you were on your lunchtime. I didn't see anyone eating. So next time, bring your sandwiches. If it's a lunchtime, there's no worries. You can eat during the session. You can drink. If it's in the evening, bring beer and wine. Absolutely brilliant. If you do, you're going to get extra points. So
Bernardo,
we want everyone to be eating and drinking and enjoying the meeting. Yes, we're going to do more interactions. We're going to do group discussions in the next session. We're going to want to hear from you. We're going to empathize with you because we want to hear your feedback, your expectations, and what you think we can do to improve for the next time. So Alan is going to be in touch with you. We want your feedback, and we're going to make it better and better. All right? Thank you so much. Have a lovely day, and weekend is almost upon us. Stay safe.